Hello and welcome to Learn with Swasti. And today we're going to do a topic called the pre-number concepts. And this is a question, or this is a topic which I was tested in the math pedagogy, both for paper 1 and paper 2. So let's begin. Pre-number concepts. In this video, we are going to be learning about what are pre-number concepts, why are they needed, and we will be doing some of the most important pre-number concepts that a child should know: classification, ordering or seriations, hierarchical inclusions, and one-is-to-one correspondence. We will also be taking up CTET examples, questions which have been asked in paper 1 and paper 2, and their answers with explanations. So what are pre-number concepts? When we are teaching maths to primary children, class 1, class 2 children, it's not that they learn maths in one day. It's an ongoing process. And before they learn maths, before they do numbers, number operations, or whether they have spatial thinking, so that's a very important part of being able to think abstractly or mathematically, or whether they can do measurements, which is like what arithmetic ultimately is. They must know certain concepts, or they should be aware about certain ideas or concepts which are pre-math or pre-number. Before they can work with numbers, they have to have this pre-number concepts or pre-maths concepts totally clarified, and they should be able to work on those, and they should be able to that's only when you introduce higher level of maths to the child. Okay, so we are going to be taking up this topic and understanding it fully, because pre-number concepts are taught to a child in the pre-classes, that is second, third, fourth, and by the time they are 6 or 7, they have learned it, and mostly it is done through play. Okay. Now, of all the numbers that we saw, number concept, number operations, spatial learning, certain things are number concept. Once a child has understood numbers, for example, to be able to add, the child should know what 3 and what another 3 is. So even to a pre-child, or sorry, a preschool child, or to a toddler, you can, through games, say, here are 3 groups of 3, take 3 more, how many do they have? But they should have some idea of numbers. And before they can do number operations, so that's a number concept rather than a pre-number concept. But so are measurements, to be able to do measurements as to how many, or how large is this, or how long is this. They will need to have understood the concept of numbers. But if you're looking at counting, just being able to count, or spatial thinking, what comes here, what's bigger, what's smaller, to be able to think in space, those are pre-number concepts. So before a child can do maths, one of the things that the child should learn, and this is called classification, this is a pre-number concept, is being able to identify whether something is big or small. Both ways. Can you find out which one is bigger than the other? Can you find out which one is smaller than the other? And consistently being able to identify the big and the small. They can also classify items in terms of shapes. For example, if you give them different shapes, it need not be circles or squares, because that's generally what we give them. But if you give them different shapes, like one is a round, one is something else, they should be able to classify. So we play games and or do worksheets, like which, we say, color those which are round in shape, so they will be able to, they should be able to spot that out. Or you work with concrete things and say, can you separate on one side those which are like this, round, versus those which are like this, a square. Okay, so maybe we're not telling them circles and square, but they can identify or classify objects and separate them. Another thing they can do once they start learning colors is you can tell them the red ball and the blue ball. So initially, when we are teaching them before we are doing maths with them in the preschool level. We are teaching them a very important pre-maths concept of being able to figure out differences or being able to classify things, concrete things, because that's what will go ahead and when we do maths. Okay, so classification is one of the pre-number concepts, one of the first things that a child is taught. Again, it is not taught in 1 year or 1 day or 1 month. It is done gradually. All of these will be done gradually, and you increase the level. As a teacher, you will increase the level. First, they can do big and small with 2 objects, then maybe they can do it with 3 or 4 objects. So after this will come the next, which is classification, ordering or seriation. So once they can classify, we can tell them here are 2, 3 things, arrange it in a particular manner. Okay, so arrange from big to small, arrange from small to big, and it need not be two things. It could be 3 things. So ordering would be with 2 or 3 things. Seriation, we can start making series. And once a child has learned that correctly, we can go into patterns. So here I've taken a pattern with two shapes, a square and a triangle, a square and a triangle, and the child should be able to, if I say continue with this same pattern, the child should be able to recognize that there is a square, then a green square with a blue triangle. So based on whatever is the available with the teacher can start making more and more complex patterns. This is where tessellation is also used, because the child learns to recognize patterns. So here I've taken 2 shapes and 2 colors. I could take 3 shapes of the same color. I could take 4 shapes. So the number of patterns that I can do are many. The child should be able to figure out that there is a pattern. And gradually this is a 2-figure pattern, make it a 3-figure pattern and a 4-figure pattern. And instead of shapes, you can use numbers. So there's a lot which can go on. But for pre-maths, we generally work with shapes and things. So ordering or seriations and patterns is a patterning, it is called. These are all pre-number concepts. Finally, before the child can start numbers or operations with numbers, the child has to learn to count. And how this is done, and one of the basic pre-maths concepts of counting is understanding one-to-one correspondence. And this has 4 rules. And before I give you the first rule, please understand that at this point, the child has rote memorized the number names, or what we call numerals. So the child knows 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Child may not be able to understand 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but at least a child of, we sing songs with them and we teach them so they can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's say a child knows how to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. So the 4 rules when we are teaching one-to-one correspondence, which is what counting actually is, let's understand how this can be done or how this should ideally be done. So the first rule when you're doing one-to-one correspondence is that each object can be assigned only 1 number. So I have put 4. This is a simpler one. I can make it more complex by giving a ball or a teddy bear, 4 teddy bears to the child, or 4 balls to the child. This will be more difficult for the child to count. But what counting requires, or one-to-one correspondence requires, is that once you say 1 to the teddy bear, 2 to the ball, 3 to the tree, and 4 to the bird, then you cannot go back and point. So every object has to be given only 1 number. Similarly, suppose I had 4 balls placed in front of me, then each ball could be given 1 number only. So once you said 1, this is 1 ball, you put it aside. Then you pick up another ball and call it 2. So it sounds very simple, but a child takes some time. So this is, by the time the child is 3 or 4, child should be able to do this. Rule number 2 is numbers are assigned in a specific order. That's where the rote memorization helps. You cannot say 1, 2, 4, 3, 5. You have to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is a specific order of numerals which has to be said. So if the first number is, or the first object is counted as 1, the second has to be 2, the third has to be 3, the fourth has to be 4. So this is the order, and that is why rote memorizing the number names is very, very important for the child. Rule number 3 is it doesn't matter what is counted first. This takes some understanding. So even if I change the order, now we have just shifted, I've taken the teddy bear and put it last, but there are still 4 things. So which one are you counting first does not really matter. If there are 4 things and you assign one number to one object, you will still get 4. Okay, so that is what a child has to understand. This takes a little more practice and drilling by the teacher, that you can count in any order. And finally, rule number 4 is the number name which is counted last. So once I reach 1, 2, 3, 4, that will tell you how many objects I have. So if I've asked how many are there, and the child has said 1, 2, 3, 4, then 4. I have 4 objects. And this is known as the hierarchical inclusion or the cardinality principle, which basically means that the bigger number includes the smaller number. So if I've said there are 4 things, that means there are also 3 things and 2 things and 1 thing. So this is also a part of the pre-numbering or the pre-counting concepts. Now, we are going to go through a few CTET questions. So let me read out the first one to you. A child is counting the number of balls by putting a finger on the ball one by one and saying the number there. She has counted some balls twice. Which pre-number concept is yet to be strengthened in the child? So in the situation, the child is counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and some balls she has counted twice. So maybe she has said 1, 2, 2, 3, 4. So what has the child not really learned? So the child has not learned one-to-one correspondence. Okay? That for every object, there should be just one number. That's the basic of it. And in that particular order. So whichever one she has missed out on. So seriation is when series have to wait. There's no seriation happening. There's no classification happening. And cardinality is really not being touched, because if she understood cardinality, then she would have moved on to. So those are most how many kind of questions. So the concept which is yet to be strengthened in the child, the answer is one-to-one correspondence. Let's see another question. Which one of the following is not included in pre-number concepts? Okay. So one-to-one correspondence, yes, is. Hierarchical inclusion is. And measurement, if you remember, I had said measurement is a number concept. It's not a pre-maths or pre-number concept. So the correct answer out here would be measurements. By what age does a child master most pre-math concepts? So a child can master most pre-math concepts by the time the child has finished class 1 or 2. So the correct answer out here would be 7. So 6 or 7, but by 7 the child has generally mastered most pre-math concepts. Which of the following are a part of pre-number concepts in young children? So classification, patterning, and one-to-one correspondence, the options. Counting, skip counting, and classification. Skip counting, patterning, and conservation of numbers. Classification, counting, and ordering of numbers. Okay. So skip counting is when you have to, that's a much higher level number concept, when we tell children count by skipping. You say 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So that's a prerequisite for understanding like multiplication tables. And even if we give it as a worksheet, maybe we will put one red, one blue, and say count how many red, blue. So the person has to kind of skip pen go. So that's skip counting. That's a number concept. Conservation of numbers, that is understanding that numbers don't change if you change a plus b, b plus a. Those are all number concepts, number operation concepts. So the correct answer to this is classification, patterning, and one-to-one correspondence. To develop the skill of counting among children, which one of the following is not required to be learned as a pre-number concept? So what do we not require? One-to-one correspondence is required, seriation is required, creating groups is required. That's a part of classification. But reciting number names randomly is not required. So I hope this was helpful. If it was helpful, then do like the video, and please follow me on Instagram for CTET and for teacher pedagogy. Thank you for watching this video.